Recently, I hit the incredible milestone of 1,000 subscribers. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you who watches these videos, because your support really does mean the world to me. Hello and welcome to this special Q&A video. Last week, I put up a post asking you guys to send in any questions you have in relation to me and theme parks, the channel, and anything else you have to ask regarding me that has nothing to do with theme parks whatsoever. This is the first video like this I've done since 2020, when I had like 50 subscribers, and so much has changed in the world since then. My perspective on theme parks is completely different, so I'm honestly so excited to jump into this. So without further ado, I'm going to stop waffling now. Let's get stuck in. Starting off with some questions on Instagram, and our first question comes from Dockety Tegan, aka Tegan Dockety, a good friend of mine, and she says, favourite Pleasure Beach ride-op? Yes, the one in Blackpool. Honestly, this is so hard for me to pick. What, there's that guy called, I think his name's Dave, who works in Nickelodeon Land. He was really impressing me with his operations on Blue Flyer last week. I've never seen trains flying out that station so quickly, oh my word. And then there's that guy who works on all the dark rides, I think his name's Lucas. He's always a really nice guy to talk to. Oh, and there's also that girl in Nickelodeon Land who's always begging us to ride Fairy World Taxi Spin and get a bouncing sensation and embarrass ourselves for some reason. Oh, wait. I swear that's you, Tegan. I'm obviously only joking. Of course, my favourite ride-up at Pleasure Beach is you, Tegan. I've mentioned it in a few videos before, vlogs I've done from the park, but yeah, Tegan is a good friend of ours. She's a regular visitor of Pleasure Beach who I kind of got to know last season, 2023. And then this year, she decided to become a ride-up. Our next question comes from, I think it's I.__.wall. And they ask, do you think Blackpool Pleasure Beach will ever get a world-class roller coaster? Well, I'd actually argue that they already do have a roller coaster that could have been considered world-class when it first opened. I mean, the big one was the tallest roller coaster in the world when it first opened. And I know everyone's not a massive fan of it, but as someone who rides it every week, I think it's very overhated. You know, if the wind's light enough, you can get some good airtime on the thing. But in terms of whether they ever get a world-class roller coaster again, I think potentially. I think they've definitely intend to. I mean, they had a van driving around the Fort Park site when Hyperia opened, which is arguably a world-class coaster, and they were hinting on that they're going to have to come up with something else to top that. So I definitely think they do plan to build another roller coaster at some point. Whether it'll be world-class, we'll have to wait and see. But I guess it all comes down to money at the end of the day, as there's rumours that the park isn't doing very well financially at the moment. The visitor numbers haven't been that good, and they made a £500,000 loss last year. Our next question comes from Danielle, who is obviously always appearing in my theme park vlogs, and she asks, are we actually a couple? Wait, what? It's caught me a bit off guard there. Bloody heck, Danielle. I have actually had quite a few comments on videos, and I've even had people come up to me and Danielle in person who've recognised us, asking us if we are a couple. I've had a lot of comments like, are you and Danielle a couple? Is Danielle your girlfriend? Are you and Danielle dating? I've even had comments such as, you should get your girlfriend in the videos more, or is Danielle your sister? I think somebody asked once. And if people watched Theme Park Mad, my best friend Josh's channel, then they probably wouldn't be asking these questions, because Danielle literally appears in every single vlog Josh films. And you know why? It's because Danielle is Josh's sister. That's how me and Danielle met in the first place. I got speaking to Josh online, me and Josh met in person, and because Danielle's his sister, Danielle was with him, so I ended up meeting Danielle and making friends with her because of that. But that still doesn't answer the question, does it? Well, it's none of your business. I'm only joking. As things stand, me and Danielle are not a couple. Danielle is a very, very, very close friend of mine. Now, obviously Danielle, you know, she appears in the videos a lot. She's usually in the background. There'll often be scenarios where Josh is vlogging and she'll just choose to be in the background of my videos, or we'll be walking around the park together and I'll be filming. But as things stand, no, we're not a couple. She's never been my girlfriend, and she's not my girlfriend now. And to just dispel any other further ridiculous rumours, as Amanda Thompson would call them, there is no girlfriend net whatsoever. Matty Brown 96 asks, overall rating for the Blackpool Pleasure Beach 2024 season. Well, it's obviously not been the best season, has it? I mean, they made a lot of promises at the start of the year with this Pleasure Beach Resort rebrand, and the fact that the PlayStation, or as we call it, the Ice Blast, is undergoing a refurbishment but would open later this year. However, not a lot's really come to fruition, has it? I mean, opening weekend was obviously a bit of a disaster, and it's just felt that ever since then the park's kind of just given up and wrote the season off as a bad year. In fact, over the past 3 years really, Pleasure Beach has been in this weird state of limbo where it doesn't really know where it's going, and it's just been coasting along as other parks have been investing. And it just feels like that something needs to happen at the place, whatever that may be. And I feel like 2025 may be the year where that thing, whatever it is, happens. There's obviously rumours about them getting an intimate gyro swing, and Amanda says that they're going to be getting a new attraction on the Grand Prix site, and there's whatever's going on with Ice Blast, which we've got a question about coming up later. Next, we're going on to the questions that have been asked on YouTube, because I obviously put a couple of community posts out asking for questions. And the next 7 questions come from Matthew Rambles, so thank you so much, Matthew, for sending so many in, because it really has been a great help to this Q&A video. And first of all, he asks, top 5 theme park YouTube channels. Well, obviously my good friend Josh, Theme Park Mad, got to put him in there. Digital Dan is a brilliant channel because he's a very funny guy. I've really enjoyed watching him since 2019. I've been watching him for ages. Obviously the Jack Silkstone, what he does with Thought for Fright Nights and stuff and documenting Hyperia, I think is really interesting. I know he doesn't upload too much anymore because he predominantly works with Thought Park on their marketing now. However, I still really do like his channel. I love the live streams he does regarding things like Fright Night speculation. So yeah, I genuinely do have massive respect for Jack. I think he's come a very long way, and he's opened up a lot of doors for people, I think, in terms of opportunities for theme parks, in terms of realising the potential of content creators and the benefits they can bring to their businesses. Another channel I really enjoy is Your Experience Guide, formerly known as Pleasure Beach Experience. Their vlogs can be quite funny at times. I love all the updates they've done in the past surrounding Blackpool Pleasure Beach. They do a lot of interesting speculation videos. And last but not least, a channel I've begun to enjoy watching recently is a channel called Coaster Dad. He does a lot of Blackpool Pleasure Beach speculation style content, similar to mine really. A lot of interesting video concepts. He does vlogs as well. He started doing these challenge videos recently, which are nice to watch. They're a nice, unique twist on the vlog content format. So that's another channel that you should definitely consider subscribing to. The next question that Matthew Rambles has asked is, what are my top 5 roller coasters in the UK? I'd say that at number 5, Stealth at Thorpe Park. I love that launch. The top hat gives some nice airtime, and you can also get some nice airtime going into the brake run as well. I'm not normally a fan of really short coasters. For example, Oblivion at Alton Towers I think is one of the worst thrill coasters out there, but there's just something about Stealth. It's just so intense. It can make for such an enjoyable experience with such a short ride duration. At number 4 we have the Smiler at Alton Towers. I enjoy all the inversions on it, even though they feel similar. It gives some nice airtime moments. It certainly doesn't have the greatest coaster layout in the world, but as far as UK coasters go, it's one of the best because unfortunately we don't have that many mind-blowing roller coasters in this country. A lot of them are quite mid. At number 3 we have the big one at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Call me biased, but this ride has a special place in my heart because it's the first ever hypercoaster I rode, and as I said before, regardless of what people say, I think it gives some incredible airtime and some of the best airtime on any UK coaster. You've just got to ride it towards the back of the train on a clear day where there's light winds. At number 2 we have Icon at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. This coaster has a really special place in my heart because I discovered Blue Fire at Europa Park early on in my journey as a coaster enthusiast, and I was always fascinated by the fact that a ride that went upside down could have lap bars. So when Icon came to Blackpool Pleasure Beach, I was really nervous and excited to ride it, and it just blew me away because I hadn't done that many big coasters at the time. I think it has some very good airtime moments and just a great variety of elements. You've got twists and turns, you've got launches, even though they aren't that powerful. You've got one inversion, because I don't count the Junior Immelman as an inversion, even though that's an incredible element in its own right. And Icon will always have a special place in my heart for these reasons. And at number 1 we of course have the mind-blowing Hyperia at Thorpe Park. As soon as I rode this coaster for the first time, I immediately knew it was the best coaster in the UK. There's just nothing like it. The airtime you get on it is incomparable to anything else in the country, especially on the back row where it's just next level. I've only ridden that ride twice at the time of recording, once on row 6 and once on row 10, which is back row. And that first drop on back row is one of the greatest elements ever. The outer bank is hands down the greatest element on any coaster ever. The stall's incredible. That trim brake is a disgrace, as Josh from Theme Park Mad would say. But apart from that, it's an incredible ride. Yes, it is way too short, but as far as rides go in this country, there's nothing that compares to it. It's just never going to be one of the greatest rides in the world because it is so short. Our next question from Matthew Rambles is top 5 bucket list theme parks in the USA. Number 1 is an absolute no-brainer. Cedar Point in Ohio just looks incredible. Most of the roller coasters there look better than anything we have in the UK. That's how incredible the place is, and it has 17 roller coasters. It just looks mind-blowing. It looks like Fort Park on steroids. Apart from that, I honestly don't have a ranking of the bucket list parks because there's just so many places in America and they all look incredible. But to name a few that I'd love to visit, I think Hershey Park looks really good. King's Dominion with I-305, that ride looks pretty mental. Kings Island looks like a really good park, also in Ohio. Six Flags Magic Mountain looks really good. There's so many Six Flags parks and they all look amazing, but a lot of them do look like carbon copies of each other. So I think as my 5th top bucket list USA park, I'll say Six Flags Great Adventure. Our next question from Matthew Rambles is, what's the next attraction you'd like to see at Pleasure Beach and where would you like it to go? Well, you've obviously got the Grand Prix site. That's crying out for a new attraction. That's a massive space now that's wasted. I'd love to see an Intamin or RMC single rail coaster on that Grand Prix site because obviously you've got Avalanche nearby that you'd need to interweave with. I don't want Pleasure Beach to remove Avalanche because it's a pretty unique ride for the UK. It probably will get removed at some point. But assuming they're not going to remove that, I think they'd still be able to fit a single rail coaster around there. And I think importantly, the issue with most UK theme parks is they don't have any airtime, but Pleasure Beach actually does have quite a few airtime focused coasters because of the Woodies. What that park needs is a coaster that's very inversion focused. Our next question, yet again from Matthew Rambles, addresses the fact that a lot of UK theme parks at the moment are going down the family route, or as I'd call it, the kids route, and avoiding installing thrilling attractions. And he's asked whether I think the popularity of Hyperia will encourage more parks to go down the thrill route and install some new thrill rides going forward. Well, you speak about the popularity of Hyperia. This isn't actually something I've spoken about that much publicly yet, but I don't think Hyperia has been as popular a ride as Thorpe anticipated and hoped it may be. When you look back at the queue times over summer, they've actually been quite comparable to other major roller coasters, whereas you would expect it, with it being the new ride, to have much higher queues. And to top that all off, it has an awful capacity, Hyperia, with it only having 2 trains, with it only being able to hold 20 riders per train. Its capacity is only something like 800 riders per hour, which is probably less than all the other Thorpe coasters. However, with that being said, it does seem to have been growing in popularity later in the season. I've noticed quite a bit lately that its queue's been quite consistently higher than other roller coasters at the park, so it may be that only now word of mouth is starting to get out about it, because I mean, when you think about it, for someone who's not an enthusiast riding that, bearing in mind it blew me away and many other enthusiasts away, they're going to be absolutely speechless and tell everyone about that thing. So I think in the long term, Hyperia will be a success. But I digress. Do I think that it'll encourage more UK theme parks to get more thrilling rides and attractions? Yes, I think I do. Obviously, Pleasure Beach were a bit salty when it first opens. And then even when you look at the so-called family parks or kids parks, because when you consider a family park, in my eyes, a family park is something like Pleasure Beach that has a mixture of rides for kids, older children, and then teenagers and adults. And parks like Drayton Manor are ripping out all their thrill rides and just turning into kids parks. On the other hand, Chessington, for example, which is regarded as a family park, did recently install a thrilling addition in Mandrill Mayhem, and Portland's Park down the road have suggested that they're considering going down more of a thrill route with their upcoming rides and attractions, with most of the attractions they've installed so far been aimed at kids and older children. I feel like recently the industry has definitely gone through a kiddie phase, and that's probably just due to the uprising of parks such as Paulton's Park and Drayton Manor getting new ownership and ripping out some of their thrill rides. But I definitely feel like the tables are starting to turn now, so if you're a thrill seeker living in the UK, hopefully you've got a lot to look forward to. The next question, which yet again comes from Matthew Rambles, and I'm not going to read out this entire paragraph because it's really, really long, but in summary, he acknowledges the fact that a lot of Merlin's rides tend to be quite short and lack airtime compared to the rides at Pleasure Beach, and acknowledges the fact that a lot of people want Merlin to take ownership of Pleasure Beach from the Thompson family, and asks whether I find this annoying. Yes, I cannot stand people who say that because, well, this shouldn't be a surprise to you if you watch the channel regularly, but I absolutely despise Merlin as a company for so many reasons. I can't believe there's genuinely people out there who are just Merlin fans, and they're always the people that hate on Pleasure Beach. I can understand people being fans of, say, Thorpe Park, because I genuinely think, despite who it's owned by, Thorpe Park is a decent park. Heck, even Alton Towers, I can kind of understand why people would like that park, even though I'm not the biggest fan of it, and it's more Merlin, say, than Thorpe Park in my eyes. I do feel like Thorpe Park is kind of going in its own separate direction from the rest of the Merlin brand. But people who are just Merlin fans, absolutely not. I mean, the reasons I hate Merlin, they have a discriminatory rap system. Do I really need to say anything else? But I will give some other reasons. There's just so many operational things that they do that I hate. The fact that almost every coaster they own has assigned seating, and they have bay loaders just hoarding people in the air gates like school children. The fact that the majority of their coasters can't even run in the rain or the lightest bit of wind for some reason. Installing a new attraction and then just forgetting about it. Complete lack of maintenance, complete neglect. Like, if they own Pleasure Beach, the big one would be closed more than it's open. All the woodies would fall to pieces, not literally, but they'd just get ridiculously rough because they wouldn't look after them, and then Merlin would just go, screw it, we're going to destroy them and put in a 30-second ride to replace them that has no airtime whatsoever and just has a stupid gimmick. And sure, yes, there'd be increased investment at Pleasure Beach if Merlin owned them, and therefore an increase in visitor numbers as a result, at least in the short term. However, the park would just completely lose its charm and character. The fact that Pleasure Beach has been owned by a family for over 100 years, and then it would suddenly turn to being owned by a corporate company who's only interested in money and gimmicky concepts to make themselves look good, as is the case with Merlin, it just wouldn't feel right whatsoever. Our final question from Matthew Rambles is, when is the podcast coming? Well, the talk show, or as you call it, the podcast. See what I did there? What can I say? Originally, I obviously planned to do this with Josh and Josh be a co-host on it. Or at least that's what I said in my return to YouTube video I posted back in May. However, it's become very clear over time, and I did have this fear in the back of my mind when I was telling you guys this. Josh is a very busy person and our calendars don't always line up, so to have Josh as a mandatory co-host, I just don't think it would work, unfortunately. However, that's not me dismissing Josh from this project, which is still going to be going ahead, by the way, likely starting in close season. I think, at least for the time being, I'm just going to start this solo, and then if Josh is available to come on and help me out with any interviews, I'll of course welcome him on. I want to do this talk show to promote positivity within the theme park industry. Yes, I want to be more of a beacon of positivity, guys, but authentically. I've obviously spoken before about how I've uploaded quite a few negative videos to this channel and have ranted about stuff a lot, usually because some news has come out that's triggered me and I've not been in the best emotional headspace to do a video about it, but I've also felt pressure to do a video about it because other people are doing videos and posting about it, and news videos tend to do well. So I am making a bit of a confession here that some videos I've posted on this channel in the past have somewhat been for clout, and I realise that's a major mistake on my part, and I obviously apologise to you guys. So the way I want to take things going forward with this channel is I want to keep doing authentic videos. If a park does something good, I'll let them know it's good. If a park does something that's bad, I'll certainly let them know it's bad. But I want to cut out, wherever possible, making videos that are just solely negative. The only exceptions being when there's something the parks are doing that's morally wrong. So, for example, in the case of Merlin's rap system, which, as I've said many times before, is completely discriminatory. There are so many positive things going on in the theme park industry that I respect so highly, and so I want to replace those occasional negative videos with occasional, and it's important that you understand that this will be occasional talk show episodes where I bring people on from within the theme park industry and just chat to them and get a deeper dive into how they got into what they do and what they do on a day-to-day basis. I'm of course going to interview Josh from Theme Park Mad. I mean, he recently got invited to a scare event for the opening of a brand new scare attraction in Bedford known as the Curse of Bermuda Falls, and the guys down there seem very passionate, and they've done an absolutely incredible job creating an immersive experience considering it's its first ever year and they're still finding their feet with it all. I've also got a couple of friends who work within the theme park industry, one of which actually did some graphic design and helped with the promotional advertisements for the Curse of Bermuda Falls, and also designs props for scare attractions and theme parks. I personally love Thorpe Park Fright Nights as an event. There's obviously stuff I'm not a fan of to do with it. Stitches. But the entertainment team at Thorpe Park are so passionate when it comes to making Fright Nights the incredible event that it is, along with the other shows that they put on throughout the year. And I'd love to gain a deeper insight into what goes on behind the scenes to bring those to life. We're now moving on to some questions sent in by Coaster Matt, and again there's a fair few here. The first of which is, what is my favourite theme park memory of 2024? It's got to be riding Hyperia for the first time. As I said before, that ride is absolutely incredible. It blew me away the first time I ride it, and I'm sure it will continue to blow me away as well. Our next question from Coaster Matt is, do I wish to do any collabs in the future? Well, I mean, I do collabs most weeks when I go to Pleasure Beach with Theme Park Mad and vlog it. But apart from that, obviously I've got the talk show, which I'm hopefully going to be launching in closed season that I've just discussed. That's obviously going to entail a lot of collabs. And obviously if any creators out there do want to consider doing a collab with me, then just drop me a DM on either my Twitter or Instagram. The links are in the description of every single video, and I am more than open to discuss. Our next question from Coaster Matt is, what do I think will happen to Ice Blast at Blackpool Pleasure Beach in 2025? Our next question from Coaster Matt is, how long do I think it'll be until we hear something about Project Horizon? For those who aren't aware, because I barely cover Alton Towers on this channel, Project Horizon is the code name of a new rumoured indoor roller coaster that's going to be coming to the park in the next couple of years. I believe the park originally planned to open it this year, however, it's obviously not opening this year because we've literally seen no construction whatsoever. We've only seen some planning documents and heard that the planning application's been approved. And there's also rumours that they're not happy with the design of the ride and want some modifications to be made to it. And there's also rumours that they've made some budget cuts, so they're having to modify the plans. But as for when we'll hear something, I reckon it'll probably be towards the back end of next season, and we'll potentially see the ride open in 2027. Obviously the focus with Alton Towers this year has been on Nemesis is reopening, Hex is reopening, and they're obviously constructing Project Ocean at the moment, which is a new flat ride to go in Forbidden Valley. Our next question from Coaster Matt, which I've kind of just addressed, is, what do I think about Hex coming back so late in the season? Get it in the bin, mate. Like, it's a complete waste of money, that thing. They shouldn't have tried to fix it. They should have demolished it and put an actual good dark ride in there. But at least if you're going to bring it back, like, what is the actual point in opening it this late in the season? I know they promised at the start of the season it was going to come back this year, and they probably want to keep that promise. But knowing Towers, it'll be broken again in another year. It would have made a lot more sense to put that extra time and effort in over winter working on it, so then it'd maybe have a little bit more life left in it. Our next question is from Mr. I Like Theme Parks, and they ask, do I think Alton After Dark will come back next year? Now, Alton After Dark was a quote-unquote event, and the fact that they marketed this as an event is embarrassing, as it was literally just extended park opening hours on the first 3 Saturdays of the season. So instead of closing at 6 o'clock, the park would close at 8 PM, meaning that people could get night rides on a few of their favourite rides, except for Nemesis on its opening day, as ride host decided to stupidly kick a load of people out the queue and then just operate the ride again for some reason. So they told a load of people to leave, and it turned out no one needed to leave at all, so people left the park with a sour taste that night. Apart from that though, the event seemed to go down quite well, so... And that is the YouTube questions done. Now on to the Twitter questions. Oh, wait, there is none. Well, that's not a surprise because 50% of Twitter users who are theme park enthusiasts just don't have their heads screwed on and hate me. In actual fact, we're moving back onto Instagram questions now, so expect to hear from some familiar names and hear some silly questions as well. And our first question comes yet again from Tegan, and she asks, favourite memory with me? As much as we've had some funny moments when we've bumped into you in Nickelodeon land when you've been operating rides and managing the queue lines and stuff, I'd honestly still say that my favourite memory with you is that day we had on park, closing day 2023. Tegan also asks, do you prefer me or Dippy Dave? Well, totally Dippy Dave, because as I said before, you know, his operations on Blue Flyer last week were absolutely incredible. I'm only joking though, Tegan. I obviously know you better, so I prefer you, so... there you go, hope you're happy. We've got another question now from Josh from Theme Park Mad, and he asks, opinions on Passage del Terror? Josh, shut up mate. Yeah, he has copied and pasted that question from the Q&A I did back in 2020, when I hadn't actually experienced Passage del Terror yet, as I was still scared of scare mazes. But Passage del Terror, for those who aren't aware, it is a scare maze located just outside the entrance of Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I'm talking literally a few metres away from the Noah's Ark building, and it is absolutely incredible. Besides that, I've only actually ever done scare mazes at Fort Pop Fright Nights, and it puts most of them to shame. Why is Passage so good, you ask? Well, it's due to its consistency. I've only ever been in there twice, but I know from my experiences and other people I've spoken to, when you go through that attraction, you always know that you're going to see every single actor in there. There's about 15 or so actors in there, I'd say, which is plenty for a scare attraction of its length, which is just under 10 minutes. And you always get the scares. Apart from that, the attraction is very well themed. And there's a few actor-led scenes in there as well, which I don't think scare attractions utilise enough, because they help calm you down a bit, put you in a false sense of security after you've just had a few intense scares. But then when you least expect it, you'll be thrown back into the intense scares again. So there you go. Passage may be a pretty conventional attraction by today's standards. I mean, you're not going to get touched by actors in there, unlike in a maze such as survival games. There's no free flow sections where you can choose from a selection of paths to go down and get separated from your group. However, it does what every scare attraction should do perfectly, and that is provide some amazing scares whilst having some incredible theming. And it sets a perfect bar as to what scare attractions should aim for in terms of quality. Our next question comes yet again from Theme Park Mad, and he asks, favourite seat on Valhalla? You know what? I'm going to say it. Josh, shut up mate, I know exactly what you're doing here. You want me to say front row, and it's not. For those of you who've not been keeping up with the vlogs recently, I don't know what it is, but Valhalla just seems to have suddenly got a lot wetter this year, but also my luck with it has gone down the drain. The past 7 times I have ridden that ride, I've been put on front row. I know I slagged off assigned seating before with Merlin, but with that ride having an omni-moving ride system, it kind of does need it so that people aren't umming and ahhing over which row to get in, and they just get in the boats quickly. And anyone who's ridden Valhalla will know that the front row is significantly wetter than any other row because you're exposed to all the water. It's brilliant in terms of being able to see the effects, but its wetness just completely outweighs that. I do enjoy back row Valhalla for the airtime you get on the drops, however you can still get quite wet on the back. Second row is okay, but it's definitely the second wettest row on the ride, I'd say. I'd definitely say third row is the driest row on Valhalla, and with it being in the back half of the boat, you do still get a bit of airtime on the drops, so you get the best of both worlds if you're on third row. And it's worth saying as well, you can still see the effects on third row, even if not as well as you can on the front. Our next question comes yet again from Josh from Theme Park Mad, and he asks, what's an underrated coaster I've ridden? Well, there's a lot of contenders for that. Speed No Limits at Oakwood blew me away when I first rode it. Nemesis Inferno at Thorpe Park you could also call an underrated coaster, because people always say that Nemesis is better when it just isn't. And you've also got Joris and the Drac, which I recently rode at Efteling. You don't hear that get talked about very much, and I thought that was a brilliant GCI wooden coaster. It's a shame that it gets overshadowed by other GCIs close by, such as Troy at Toverland and Woden at Europa Park, which, don't get me wrong, I've ridden Woden and it's better, and Troy looks better as well, but Joris deserves some credit. The fact that it has a 1.1 metre height restriction and it's as intense as it is, it'd fit brilliantly at a park such as Drayton Manor at Paultons Park that tries to appeal to the whole family. Our next question comes yet again from Theme Park Mad, and he asks, what is an overhated coaster I've ridden? Again, there's a couple of contenders here. I'd say Gudrix at Park Asterix. Everyone says that that's rough, when it is a bit rough, but it's not as bad as people say. You just got to keep your head back against the comfy headrest. And another one is Big One at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, because, as I said before, it does give airtime if you ride it on a nice clear day where there's a light breeze. And a lot of people say that's rough as well, but honestly, I don't find it that rough. And also Grand National at Pleasure Beach as well is very overhated, because again, a lot of people say that's really rough. And it can be somewhat rough on the first drop on wheel seats. I've still not got the guts to ride it on back row, because I just reckon that would be a little too much for what I can tolerate. But if you sit on a non-wheel seat, especially on Nash, it's not rough at all. And last but not least, we have a question from Danielle again, and she has asked, what is my second least favourite theme park event? So she's playing on the joke here. Obviously, those of you who watch the channel will know that I absolutely despise Oktoberfest that parks such as Pleasure Beach, Towers and Thorpe do on a yearly basis. I just don't get it whatsoever. Like, why do we have a German event in the UK called Oktoberfest? Yeah, it's in September, and I've done a whole rant about this that's 35 minutes long in 2020, so definitely go and check that out. But as for my second least favourite event, there's a good couple of contenders here. Mardi Gras at Thorpe Park actually is a close contender. I know I've not hated on Mardi Gras that much in videos, because I think it does suit Alton Towers quite well. It's a very festival-ish style event, and the festival vibe really does suit Alton Towers quite well. The fact you've got all the lawns and stuff, and you got the stage on there and all the seating areas. But at a park such as Thorpe Park, it just completely clashes with the chill, cool atmosphere of that place. Like, to me, bands and bright, vibrant colours and the parade going all the way through the Amity themed area, which is themed to this town that's been destroyed by a tidal wave, it just completely clashes. You have to be very careful with any event in Thorpe Park, because unlike Towers, it's obviously very small, so it can really affect the atmosphere of the place drastically. Even Alton Towers Oktoberfest doesn't affect the park too much because it's that big. They simply cannot afford to overhaul the entirety of Alton Towers for an event. But Thorpe Park is so small that any change to even part of the atmosphere of the place really stands out, and unfortunately Mardi Gras doesn't work at all. However, I'd still say that my second least favourite event is the Smiler Takeover thing that they did at Alton Towers last year to celebrate its 10th anniversary. I mean, plonking Smiler theming in Wickerman's Rap Queue and around Nemesis and stuff, like, what the heck were the entertainment team and management actually thinking with that one? And the shows that they put on seemed absolutely dreadful. You had this really awful singing show from what I remember from vlogs and stuff, and this was in X Sector, and X Sector's a pretty noisy area as it is, with a very dark theme, and then you just got this kind of happy singing going on in the background. It was a complete juxtaposition, and it's weird because you'd think that a Smiler themed event would fit well in X Sector because it complements the theme perfectly. It's a theme that's the same theme as in that area, but it just didn't work. And the fact that you had the fun fair rides in the background of that just made it look like even more of a complete mess. Wow, I really am starting to get into a bit of a rant there, but there's plenty more theme park event ranting on this channel, which is why I want to go and check out this video on the right side of your screen. It's the Oktoberfest rant I uploaded back in 2020, expressing all the reasons why I despise that event. And for more things theme park related in the UK and beyond, make sure you click the icon in the centre of your screen to subscribe. And thank you to everyone who sent in questions for this Q&A. It's been absolutely brilliant to do, and thank you everyone for watching.